everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of the Shinesparkers Podcast. I'm Amanda Van Heil. I'm going to be your host. I'm joined by our creative director, Darren, and our special guest, Sebastian. Sebastian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with the Metroid series?
Yeah, sure. I'm Sebastian, a 32-year-old Swede who has been working with Darren on some Harmony of Anything albums for quite a long time now. Starting with Harmony of a Hunter in 2011, I think. Yeah, 10 years ago. And that was the first time I made any video game covers. And it's been quite a few since. I have since been an assistant director on Harmony of Heroes Final Smash, and I'm mostly an acoustic musician. Have done some occasional orchestral stuff and some rock stuff as well. I don't know what else to say, really. I'm on this.
That's perfect.
Okay, that's fine, maybe. It's always difficult to present yourself. It always ends up sounding like a resume or something.
I know what you mean. It's like, how do I talk about myself without sounding egotistical and not sounding like I'm in a job interview?
Yeah.
However, if you're already egotistical, it comes to just second nature. So
True.
So I don't have a problem.
So this episode, we are actually going to be talking about Harmony of a Hunter Returns, which is the new addition to the Harmony of grouping of albums. So why was this album created, aside from the fact that the previous ones were just fantastic? I can't think of a reason why not to have a third or fourth, or what number are we on? Sorry.
This will be the 6th album that we've done now.
Okay. I'm thinking like Harmony of a Heroes and Harmony of a Hunter, and I know there was like the Pokemon one, I think, at some point.
Yeah, Champion.
Okay, cool.
So a sort of brief history, I guess. So obviously people have heard me on the podcast before many times. Obviously, you know that I'm creative director of Shinesparkers, but I also head these incredible fan arrangement albums in a series called Harmony of, and then we normally have a subtitle of some kind. And it started in 2011 with Harmony the Hunter, and that was a Metroid album to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Metroid series, because at the time it felt like certain people were not celebrating Metroid, and it was a little bit frustrating, and we wanted to do something about that. And it took off so well that we made a second one, which we decided to call Harmony of a Hunter 101% Run, which is a reference to a 101% completion rate that you can get in Metro Prime 2 Echoes, and we thought it was a cool little title. And we tried to cover as many tracks that we couldn't do the first time around. In 2014, we decided to sort of expand on Metroid a bit and sort of include other series, and so we decided to go with a Super Smash Bros. Fan arrangement album called Harmony of Heroes, which was a massive 101-track album that did very well. And then we followed that up with a 27-track follow-up album called Harmony of Heroes Final Smash in the same year, which Sebastian was assistant director on. And that was completed in 6 weeks, which was very stressful, but I feel like we were able to incorporate some of the series in the recent games that had released at the time, which was the Wii U and 3DS games. And then in 2017 we released a Pokemon album, which was a story-driven narrative piece which had the music of Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green. It celebrated the 20th anniversary, and it was to commemorate the passing of Satoru Iwata, the former Nintendo president. And so it's been a while since we actually did another album, so we thought it would be a really good time to do a follow-up to the Harmony of a Hunter albums. So to celebrate a decade of albums, we decided to do another one of those, and it has 65 tracks. It is 5 hours long, and it includes many people from the previous albums, including a few new ones. And again, we've tried to cover tracks that we haven't done the first time around and the second time around, and it's come together very well. And it will launch on the 6th of August, which is the 35th anniversary of Metroid.
Very awesome. I think my first introduction to the Harmony of albums, it was the Super Smash Brothers one that was what introduced me to it, because I remember reporting on it for Zelda Universe. So that's how I know about it initially.
I think that might be how we met, actually, because I think I was...
That might actually be how we
met. Yeah.
That's probably it.
But yeah, as you can see, it's been quite a journey to get to this point, and it's just really nice that we could actually put something together during the pandemic when people were sort of a bit of a loss as to what to do, because people's work had dried up and things, and there was a lot of stress, and they wanted a distraction from the world outside. So we decided that we was going to put this together. It felt like the right time to do it. Prior to that, there was a personal circumstance as well that made me want to go ahead and organise a new album, and that was my friend Jesse, who had passed away a couple of years prior. He was actually the person that got me into Metroid, so if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be Shinesparkers, more than likely, and there certainly wouldn't be any albums. So it felt correct and proper to dedicate an album in his memory. So I got the blessing of his sister and his parents, and they were very thankful that we could put it together. So that was one of the driving factors to create this. But it's been really nice to gather people together again and actually create something, and we hope that this album will be a good distraction for other people as well who may be going through a difficult time at the moment.
Yeah, I think we could all use a distraction right about now.
Definitely. I think it's a really nice gesture, Darren, for your friend. I think it's really beautiful, and something I'm sure he would appreciate as well.
I think knowing Jesse, he probably just would have been amazed that we even put this together for him. Like, he wouldn't have cared how it turned out. He would have just been incredibly grateful and be saying, "Why are you doing this for me? Why are you making this? It's too much of a fuss." But he was he was a nice chap, and we'd lost touch, as people do as you get older. You don't talk to people for a while, and with the pandemic, I thought it would be great to get in touch again and see how he is. And unfortunately, I didn't get a reply. So when I contacted his sister, that's when I got the sad news. But it had happened a couple of years prior, so it was it just kind of, I don't know, there was a lot of guilt there as well, I think, just wishing that I'd spoken to him sooner and kept in touch. But that is unfortunately life, and I feel that with this album, his memory can live on a bit. I think that would be really nice. So I hope that when people download the album and listen to it, they can acknowledge this life of this person that made Shinesparkers and made these albums possible in the first place.
I love that. That's a really awesome way to honor somebody, is with music and with a series that somebody loves so much. I think it's just a great way to do it.
Yeah, I had mentioned him previously, I think, but the way that I got into Metroid was he gave me his copy of Metroid Prime. I think it was in 2004, because at the time I was like, "Oh, Metroid, what is that series? I can't be bothered with that series. I don't care about that series." And he said, "You need to play this game. I'm going to send you my copy." And he sent it over from the US, and I had to get like a freeloader so I could run it on my GameCube, and I just couldn't put it down. And I bought every other game in the series, played through them, and I just became this super fan. And he must have just thought, "Oh, you're copying now, Darren," So yeah, but I've still got his copy, and I'll cherish it forever. It was just such a kind thing for him to do. What better way of trying to convince someone to get into the series than actually giving someone your favorite game. You know, that's, I don't know, trying to find a comparison to that, but yeah, I guess, Amanda, because obviously you're a massive Zelda fan, if you was to give away like one of your like prized Zelda games or something to a friend to convince them to play it.
Yeah, I think I gave one of my friends my Ocarina of Time 3D.
Oh, wow.
Because I was going to play it one day, and I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure one of my friends has this. So.
But it was just such a nice thing for him to do at the time, and, you know, I guess this is something that I can do for him in return.
So, Sebastian, I know you mentioned how most of your music is acoustic, but you do other styles as well. And I listened to the sample of your track on the album, and I love it. So what kind of styles are on the album? And tell us a little bit about, or whatever you can say about the track that you worked on.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, there's a plethora of genres in the album. We have synthwave, there's cinematic orchestras, acoustic tracks, obviously, because one of them is mine. Different kinds of rock and metal, choir arrangements. We have jazz, ambient, folk, chiptune. I mean, name a genre, and we probably have it covered on the album.
So basically, there's something everybody is going to be able to enjoy on this album, no matter what kind of music they listen to.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. I'm not... since it's such a range of genres, I mean, there's a risk you probably won't like all of the tracks, but we have 65 tracks on the album. I'm sure you will enjoy plenty of them. Personally, I love them all. I think they're great. I'm super proud of all of them.
It's so funny though, like listening to it and then just going, oh wait, that's the Smash Brothers song. Oh wait, no, that's not the Smash Brothers song. That's the Metroid song that was in Smash Brothers. Because when it's like when that's like your first introduction to a certain song, that's kind of like what you associate it with, no matter what it's in later.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to jump in there, I think the track that you're talking about is Through the Depths, which is a cover of Bringstar, and that is that was created by Vincent Rubinetti, and that sort of ties back to Harmony of Heroes. It's focused, like, it's sort of inspired by Smash Brothers, and there's a few things like that around the album. We've got like a story-driven sort of Ridley piece, where it sort of shares like his sort of journey through all the games from the first all the way to Samus Returns. So the same theme but in different ways. So it changes as you go through. And then to 101% Run, where we've got High Score making a return, which is a group which I'm sure that Sebastian can probably go into a little bit. And they've just done a huge medley which references every single Metroid game to date, which also includes a more recent edition as well.
Federation Force?
Federation Forces is a Metroid release, and therefore it is in there, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we even made a little hint to Metroid Dread in that medley as well. High Score is a super fun project. I had just started studying video game music at the university here in Sweden, and I had this vision of creating a miniature Harmony of a Hunter album, but just one track, one medley that would be as diverse in genres as the album was. But I knew I couldn't do it alone, so I gathered up some of my classmates, quite a few of my classmates, to do like one track from each and every game in the Metroid series. We ended up with I think it was like an 11-12 minute long track covering everything from the NES Metroid to Metroid Other M. That was the most recent release at the time. And for this album, we wanted to one-up that entire experience. Unfortunately, not everyone from the original project came back and felt they had a time to work on another medley like this, but I did manage to get a few more friends together, and it all just spiraled out of control, and now it's a 25-minute long medley. That just, I mean, it got a bit insane, I think. We have some death metal, and we have some jazz, some a cappella stuff, all within the same medley. And I think personally, I'm super excited for everyone to hear this track, and I'm super proud of it.
You've even got voice acting in there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I got the opportunity to voice act the alarm from Metroid Other M.
You've done voice acting on some other tracks as well, but yeah, Sebastian's influence across the whole album is clear. But not just this album. Sebastian has been a part of nearly every single release that we've ever done. He's been a huge support. So it's nice that you're here for the sort of 10th anniversary album. And he's been a fantastic assistant director as well. He's been giving some good advice and support to all the musicians involved in the project. He's worked really, really hard, as has Zach Parrish, which is our other assistant director who couldn't be here today, and he does send his apologies. But Zach has also worked incredibly hard on this album and contributed so many tracks as well. He's done a fantastic job. It is a huge team effort.
Definitely.
We couldn't just do it between the three of us. Something of this scale and scope couldn't be achieved without a dedicated team and a creative, passionate team. And I think the concept of sort of bringing everyone together to sort of mark the anniversary during a challenging time for people, I think must have resonated, because there was a lot of support initially, and the new people that's involved have heard of the previous albums, and it's been great to have them involved, as has the art team as well. The art team has done a fantastic job this time around, and we've actually made the art a bigger part of the album as well. We've included, I think it was like 7 pieces of artwork on the front cover, which looks incredible. It's a varied style of art, which kind of reflects the audible experience as well. They should be very proud of themselves.
Now, this is a huge undertaking. I mean, 65 tracks, 5 hours. What all goes into creating an album like Returns, especially with so many artists working on it? Like, what was like step one, aside from just deciding you wanted to do the album, going from there, like deciding how many tracks and all of that, and deciding what's going to go into it?
I think if I approached people and said, hey, do you want to work on a 65-track album? I think people would have ran for the hills. I don't think Sebastian would have wanted to be involved. But I suppose what goes into an album is you've got to have a solid idea of what you want and a concept that you can sell to people. You can say, hey, this is my idea, this is what I want to achieve, and do you want to be part of this journey? And I'm quite thankful and lucky that people have been able to do that. So once we've kind of got the numbers and we know that there's interest, then we can sort of go a bit more in depth. We can say, well, what sort of things do we want to cover within that album? What kind of release is this going to be? And for this one, it was pretty much about celebrating 10 years of Harmony the Hunter, 35 years of Metroid, and the life of Jesse. And helping people through these really difficult times. That was kind of the goal. But in previous projects, it's been there's been slight variations of that. There's been different approaches. In a project like Harmony of a Hunter, you just kind of bring together as many people as you can, and there's a lot more freedom and less restrictions compared to an album such as Harmony of a Champion, where it's specifically one game, and we know exactly how many tracks are going to be in there because we want to cover every track, and we know that it's going to have sound design, for example, and it's going to be a lot more restrictive. Even in the artwork of Harmony of the Champion was quite restrictive as well, because we wanted to have just 2 colours and shades of those colours in between, which was a very big challenge, I think, for the art team back then. But this one being a little bit more open and more chill and more relaxed, that probably is a bit more appealing. But once you've got a few tracks and you kind of have an idea of how things are going, you kind of want to look at the sort of the order of the tracks and how how the whole album's going to flow. You also need to look into the promotion as well, so you need to have some people that's willing to get the word out there, and thankfully over the years we've built up a really good network of websites, and I think even the site that you write for, Zelda Universe, Amanda, has been quite supportive over the years as well. And obviously the fans over at Shinesparkers as well, all of our readers, they're all fans of previous albums, so it helps it move a little bit further. And obviously social media and the rise of YouTube, for example, that helps as well. People talk about the albums and the reach goes further. So yeah, it was easier to manage and push this one in a certain direction compared to others back in the day, where you had to really plan out and push really hard and get noticed. This one's probably a little bit more fortunate in that regard. The short answer to all of that is that you need to have a really good concept, and you need to have the right people, reliable people on board. You need to have some goals, and they need to be realistic, but you can exceed them as a bonus. And I've been fortunate that on every album we've managed to exceed the expectations. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, Sebastian, considering that you've been involved in so many of these. Would you say that that's accurate?
Well, it's very accurate, I think. And you touched upon Champion being quite different from the other projects, and I think that project stands out quite a bit from the other ones. I think it's a super strong album, and it had a very, very clear vision from the start what it was supposed to be, and I think that's a bit of the beauty of these albums as well. Like in that case, you had a very clear vision, and in other cases, like you just want a diverse, high quality album like this one.
Yeah, I would say compared to Champion, all of the other albums, there's been wiggle room to expand on the scope of the project. So any ideas that you had at the beginning, you could expand and change them potentially, and not affect the overall final product once you reach there. We didn't plan to have 65 tracks. I think my initial goal was to have around, personal goal for me was to have 40 tracks, so we could beat 101% Run and make sure that we had more tracks, and then we could say it's the biggest Harmony of a Hunter album. The intention was never to get close to Harmony of Heroes. I think that is that is something that I'll never be able to recreate. I feel something of that scale, but to get to 65 tracks was far exceeding what I expected, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there were tracks that we couldn't cover, and I was kind of thinking to myself, I would have loved to have had that track on the album. And then a couple of days later, Zach would send me a message. He'd be like, "Oh, hey Darren, me and Sebastian's worked on this track. Have a listen to it," and they've gone and made this track. And so I think they're probably responsible for a vast majority of the music that we didn't get. And also our other friends at Drackle. Is it Drackle? Can I pronounce their name?
Should I pronounce it in Swedish? Drakeld.
Yeah, what he said. But yeah, they contributed a lot of music that would not have been on the album otherwise. So, for example, Quadraxis wouldn't have been there, and Dark Samus, we nearly didn't get Dark Samus, so yeah, it's thanks to them why they were even on there in the first place, so I'm very happy. And there was obviously some tracks that we couldn't get on there, and we did our best, and we're not going to beat ourselves up about that, because 65 tracks is an incredible achievement. I'm very, very proud of that.
And I'm really happy that, I mean, we kind of aimed for 40 tracks, as you said, but since, at least this is how I feel, that we got 40 really, really good tracks, and we had time to spare, sort of. And we just kept adding tracks, and we could maintain that high level of music. It wasn't like, we need this track, quickly throw together something that kind of sounds like that track. I mean, I think we were capable of keeping the high quality over the entire 65 track album.
Yeah, for sure. And I just wanted to touch a little bit further as well on what goes into creating an album. The planning is very important. So even if it might not follow exactly, there still needs to be a plan. You need to have deadlines. And in the past, we have had deadlines for everyone. This time around, we changed it a bit. We tried to be a bit more flexible because, people work at different paces. And with the pandemic, we didn't want to put any extra stress onto people if we could help it. So we tried to agree a flexible deadline between us that was good for us, but also good for them. And I think, personally, that is the best way to go with organising projects like this, making sure that the deadlines are good for them, but also good for you, because you still need to run a project at the end of the day, and you need to make sure that all the other bits that precede that go well. So obviously, once we got all of the tracks together, we had to make sure that they all sounded okay, there wasn't any clicks, pops, that kind of thing. And obviously we have to get them mastered, and then we have to listen over it a few more times and see if there's any problems again, and then back and forth. But there's also things like the art team and the trailer team and promoting it, and so there's lots of different things that go on. Also the website as well, making sure the new website could come together. So that's a lot of things to juggle, a lot of plates to spin, and you want to make sure that one part of the project is as finished as it can be. But because we had this extra time of sort of padding in there just in case things went wrong, things actually went better than I expected around maybe halfway through, and the other parts of the project was coming along so well, and that's why we were able to take on additional tracks. And we had about maybe 2.5 months of just gathering the extra 25. So yeah, the plan can change, but as long as you're remaining realistic and the scope doesn't get out of control, that will lead to a successful release. There were points where things got a bit stressful, for me certainly, and you just have to just accept that, well, things didn't maybe go exactly the way you wanted them to. But at the end of the day, we've released we're going to release a really solid album with some really good music, and we can be proud of that.
Now, you guys have mentioned this has been 10 years of the Harmony of albums. So with the original albums, what was the inspiration for those?
As we've kind of touched on previously, it was about sort of promoting the anniversary of Metroid, and at the time we didn't feel that the anniversary was being sort of talked about. We felt it was going to get overlooked, and I felt that as a community, because at the time we were only like a few months old, I think we were very, very small and very new, and we wanted to bring the community together and create something. And I was quite fortunate to have a lot of musician friends, because I was just a huge fan of video game remixes, and I befriended a lot of people because I was just so I wouldn't leave them alone. I was like, I really love your music, I need to chat with you, I want to be your friend. and so I ended up with like these friends, and I was like, oh, let's make an album together. And I'd never done one before, I'd never managed anything, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not a musician, but I was determined, absolutely determined to celebrate the anniversary. And that was the goal, really. And it was like, once I knew what the goal was, I sort of built around that. It was like, well, who do I want to reach? What styles of music do we want to have in this? What people do I need to be part of this project to make sure that it goes well? And so I did some research, I looked into other releases and what they had to do, and I was just very fortunate to have the right people help me with that. And it got a little bit easier with the second album, and then as you progress through you get a bit more experienced, and I still feel a bit of a cheat, really, like I shouldn't be making this because I don't know what I'm doing, because it all seems to fall into place in the end. And we had a lot of fun putting them together, and I think going from Metroid and wanting to do another album but not quite sure where you go from 2 Metroid albums, it was difficult, but we decided that Smash Brothers was the next logical step with that. And then if it wasn't for Sebastian suggesting that we do a small 27 track follow-up, we wouldn't have had Final Smash. So it was kind of down to him, really. Although, on reflection, I think what we should have done is we should have pushed Champion back a bit and spent more time on Final Smash. But even then, I mean, it was a good experiment to see what could actually be achieved in 6 weeks. Although I would never, ever release an album on Christmas Day again, because that is just ridiculous. No one is there to look at it. And Paul Rosen, who mastered the album, was working on that on Christmas Eve, and I felt so bad. That was a case of bad planning, I feel, and it was almost like every day was stressful. You know, and it really.
Rosen is so awesome, though.
It was a massive it was a massive stress though, and although it came out, in my opinion, reasonably well, I think everybody involved obviously did their absolute best. There wasn't a lot of time, and I think with more time it could have definitely been better. So that is a good example of, even though you have the experience, you can still make mistakes, and that was the 4th album that we did, and I think while the album itself wasn't a mistake, the way it was handled was, and as the director of that project, that was my responsibility.
And you learned what not to do, so there you go.
Yes, kind of.
That's how you have to look at it.
Kind of. I mean, nothing ever 100% goes to plan, but I think once you start accepting that, and you know that as long as you reach your goals of what you wanted to do and you plan carefully, you can make something that people will enjoy. I think the majority of people won't recognise or even identify some of the very small issues that we have with some of the tracks in the albums, but it can't be helped sometimes. Sometimes a track is done and it's as good as it's going to be and it needs to go out the door. But they are fun to put together, and I wouldn't be putting them together today if I didn't enjoy them. So that's why we're here making the 6th.
I actually gave Final Smash a listen this last week, and I think it was a lot better than I remember it being. I think just the amount of stress that I felt during that project kind of... It might have lowered my overall experience of that album, of the outcome of the album.
The Punch-Out track was very good, though. That's so catchy.
Yeah, it's Punch super good. And
the will be knocked out. It's great. It's awesome. It's really catchy.
That's so good. And Zach's the closing track is super good as well.
Yeah, the Bowser's Inside Story track.
Snake Eater, another really good track from that album.
Good. Yeah, Snake Eater. That was amazing. Stephen Wells did a really good job of that, and Stina, incredible voice. I think looking back as well, I would say Harmony of Heroes with the DK rap. The DK rap is a track that no one wanted to take on, and I can't remember exactly what the conversation. I think I was out shopping at the time, and I think you'd approached me, if I remember correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think you said that you had an idea for it, and I think together we came up with it being a fun end of project track where we got as many people involved as possible. Maybe you remember it differently than I do.
No, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
And then we managed to get cameos of every single Donkey Kong Country game in there as well. And we even managed to get the composer of the original track, Grant Kirkhope, to make a very small cameo in terms of his voice. And
that is the biggest happening of my life. That's so
cool. Yeah, it was really cool. I was privileged to be a part of that one as well, but it was just a lot of fun. Everyone just enjoyed themselves on that, and it was a track that went from having zero interest because people probably looked at it and thought, oh, this is a joke of a track, and we turned something that was a joke of a track into one of the most fun tracks that we've ever done and probably will ever do on a Harmony album. So that's a massive highlight for me.
I remember you guys were having, I want to say it was a live stream, listening party of, I think it was Harmony of Heroes. And I just remember listening to it while you guys were live streaming. I don't remember what channel it was being live streamed on. I just remember sitting in the living room and listening to it and just going, these people are so talented. I just want 1/10 of their talent. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. The whole time.
And well, the teams are super talented. I don't know how you can gather up so many awesome musicians, Darren.
Darren, how do you know so many amazing musicians? Like, how are you friends? Well, I mean, I get you explained your friendship making process, but still, like, how is it you know so many talented people?
I tend to know friends of friends. Like, the more people you have in these projects, they're like, oh, my friend would love to be part of this, and then, you know, they're involved, and it just kind of goes from there. But the important thing, I think, is just listening through it. I would rather have people that were passionate and dedicated, but may not be as and I don't even like to say this, but talent is probably like the wrong word for it, like
refined.
I think that's a better word. Yeah, maybe someone that doesn't have the same years of experience as, say, other people, but I'd rather have those people involved because they are passionate about what they do, and they have a love for what they're making. And I love the idea of having these people that don't get noticed as much as they should, and actually give them a platform to get their stuff out there and have people listen to them. And hopefully people do go to the website actually after they've listened to this podcast, and they look at the list of musicians, they look at their portfolios, and they follow them on all of their social medias and their websites, and they support them. And, you know, those people that go on to, you know, to make music and sell it, you know, support them, you know, buy their music. And if you really believe in what they do, you know, give them that opportunity. But yeah, if we can help them and push them and help them feel a little bit more confident about their abilities, that's a great thing. When we've made the first album, I do recall saying, if people were still listening to it 10 years from now, then I would consider it to be a huge success. And we've got 10 years and people are still listening to it, but I think it was already a huge success from the minute that I was receiving messages saying, oh, your album inspired me to become a musician, oh, your music actually got me through a really dark time where I was considering suicide, and this helped me through it. And, you know, when you hear stuff like that, it has been a success, because if you didn't do that, if you didn't make these albums, you might not have inspired people. You know, those people may not be here anymore. I'm very privileged, very, very privileged to help and have a hand in making these possible. But a lot of the credit goes to the musicians and the artists and the animators and the, you know, sound engineers and the master engineers. Everybody has played a big part in making these things happen.
Yeah, it's quite an incredible team effort. Like, the teams are so huge. There are so many people involved, and keeping track of everything it's not the easiest thing to do. But like, I need to say two strengths that Darren has that makes this possible, and that, I mean, Darren is so passionate. It's when he's inspired to do something, he gets that shit done if you want it done, and you put down all the effort that is needed to make it happen. And just by you putting down so much effort, I think that kind of gets mirrored in the artists of all kinds that join in. I mean, at least I feel so, that I need to be at my best because I know how hard you work to get everything working. And the other thing I want to highlight as well is something you mentioned as well, that you give an opportunity to an unknown quantity. And I think that is a huge strength as well. I mean, I was definitely an unknown quantity when I joined the first album. I had basically nothing to show for my skills. I just wrote a message to you and said, hey, I want to be on this album. I was super scared. I had nothing to show you, and you were like, yeah, sure, take Craig's Lair and make a track out of that.
I don't remember. It's really embarrassing, but I don't actually remember how we met. It's like you just existed and you've always been there, because I've known you for so long.
This seems to be a this seems to be a running trend with Darren. Like, all of us, like, how did we meet? I don't know. It's just, we just have known each other, and just one day, I think Darren's really from the future and comes back and changes some things, and that's really what happens.
Well, if I was from the future, all I can say to people is that life is going to get better, and as long as we keep music as part of our lives, and we share that with people, then there definitely is a good future for everyone, as long as we keep music in our lives.
And this album, I mean, it brought so many people together, so many collaborations, so many artists like ended up working together just thanks to the different albums that you've worked on.
Yeah, like I said, there was a lot of returning musicians, sort of partly why the album is called Harmony of a Hunter Returns. It returns, back to Metroid. It's coming full circle. There's returning musicians. It is a sort of a reference to the latest Metroid game at the time, which is Samus Returns. But we're also returning to older concepts that we've had in previous albums. Yeah, there's a lot of references there. The name just made sense, and the biggest one I think is just having returning musicians and making sure that they was a part of it, because they, over the years, they've done so many great things for our projects. So I had to invite as many of them back as I could, and we couldn't get all of them because a decade is a long time. There's people that were students when they were working on this project, the first one, and now they've got families and children, and it's the time is a lot less. But it's great that people could make time for it and they could come back. I think I can't speak for all of them. I would like to think that they have fond memories of the first one and the previous albums after that, that they wanted to return and make another contribution.
So what do we think is going to be the future for Harmony of a Hunter? There's going to be a 50th Metroid anniversary one day.
Well, I want to just get this one out of the way first.
Oh, okay. So you're not working on the 50th anniversary.
It's been a long project. It's been a year of my life, and I'm going to enjoy this moment. I'm going to enjoy the fact that we've made a 65-track, 5-hour album, and then we'll see what the fans want next. But for now, I'm just going to have a nice break from everything, and just have a lot of time off and not think about any more albums, because as nice as music is, you need to recharge. You got to recharge your batteries. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear what people want to see next.
Well, hopefully we'll get a few more Metroid games in the future so that there can be more albums.
I think that is very much possible. I think with Dread and then Metroid Prime 4, there's bound to be opportunities for more music, but I don't want to commit to anything today. So
no, you have to commit right now. You have to sign a contract going, I promise that I will make this album.
50.
Well, I promise that what was that? Sorry?
No, nothing. Sorry.
I was going to say, I do promise that we will have some Metroid Dread tracks in this album, which was a nice addition, a very late addition once we got the news of the new game. So that there is going to be a couple of references in there from this upcoming game. Not the first time that we've worked on a track before it actually got released officially. Harmony of Heroes, we actually had the trailer. It was the trailer music at the time for Final Destination, I think it was, which we put into the big Final Destination track, which was that was incredible to have an actual orchestra on a fan project. It's really great. But yeah, so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what people think of the Dread references that we've included. And then when it comes out in October, they can listen to the actual themes and compare them and see what they thought.
Well, that brings us to our mailbag question from last podcast, in which we asked everybody, what are your thoughts on the announcement of Metroid Dread? I know my would be a whole lot of screaming and excitement, and I was very happy. But we're going to go through some of these answers here on Twitter. Let's see. Elias Thompson says, and I'm going to do his voice, I'm stoked. That's what Elias says.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some other good ones here? Okay, load up. Bear Festival says, awful. Should have been should have been Prime Pinball 2. Sorry to disappoint you that we're not getting Prime Pinball 2.
I'd love Prime Pinball 2. I love the first one. I've been playing through them all recently.
I haven't played it.
And I love pinball. You need to.
I've heard it's good.
Such a fun game. Yeah, it was literally a spin-off.
Well, JMO, Metroid Dread Hype Man says, it genuinely blindsided me like a delicious and wonderful semi-truck. They got my expectations down by saying there's no Metroid Prime 4 announcements, and bam.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it? I think we talked about it at length in the previous podcast, just the expectations of seeing Dread on screen and, this impossible game actually coming to fruition. And it just amazes me that we are a couple of months out from actually playing that game ourselves. Yeah, I still can't believe it.
It's unreal, knowing that there's going to be a Metroid game in 2 months.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Mandalorian Merc says, it was the biggest surprise for me when I saw the Metroid 5 title. I absolutely lost it. I didn't think we would ever see a sequel to Fusion. I was so bummed to hear that Prime 4 was getting scrapped and built from the ground up, but now I'm more excited for this than Prime. So I'm so happy to see all these people excited about it. It makes me so happy seeing so many, I can't wait for Metroid. I'm like, yay! And Nintendo's tweeting about Metroid all the time.
Yeah.
It's just great.
It's like an alternate
We live in the best timeline.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like an alternate timeline.
Yeah. It's all of a sudden Nintendo... More proof that Darren's a time traveler.
Oh, yeah, I'm responsible for Dread, yeah, clearly.
Yep. Crimson Paladin says, only Nintendo could announce one of their most infamous titles and then release it 4 months later. Anyone else would at least drop a cryptic hint leading up to the reveal, and even then, it would be at least a year before it released. That is so true. Nintendo was one to just go, hey, guess what's coming out in a couple months? This game. Yeah, you bet you didn't see that one coming, did you?
I think we have had a few little hints along the way. I think that Paper Mario game that got released last year, there was that trailer, and then right at the very end of it, they had this Samus's helmet on top of Mario.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
I think that's what kind of got people talking about it, and then there was lots of rumors about the 2D games, and yeah. So I think they have tried to hint a little bit.
That's true.
Because it just felt so out of nowhere. Why would you even do that? So I don't know.
That is true.
But I think so many of us had probably given up on having another 2D Metroid game. I know I had. I thought that we're never getting another 2D Metroid. We're not getting Metroid Dread.
I felt that
Metroid 5.
Yeah, I felt that way before Samus Returns. I think Samus Returns was the turning point for me, because suddenly this format of Metroid, this traditional style Metroid, was a thing again. It was possible. They reinvented the 2D approach, and since then it was they probably could make Metroid 5 actually. So I kind of had a bit of hope, and I think that's why I wrote that feature for the site as well, just sort of giving my sort of ideas of what they could do for Metroid Dread. And I think it's always kind of been there with me. There was always that hope that it would finally get released. But, I think just Dread, as a concept, Metroid 5, a sequel to Fusion, Dread itself, I think was always going to be a bit of a pipe dream. It'll never happen. And you would see it in, fake leaks, and you would think, oh, well, that's fake because they've put Metroid Dread in there.
Yeah.
And... yeah, it's kind of like when, I guess, Duke Nukem Forever was finally released. It was always a joke, how Duke Nukem Forever's in there. It's not real, But yeah, no, we're very, very, very lucky to have it. And it looks amazing as well. It's not just like, oh, Dread's coming out and oh, it looks average. It actually looks like a really, really good game. So I hope that is the case.
All right, so for next podcast, we want to collect messages to wish Metroid a happy 35th anniversary. So let us know on Twitter at Shinesparkers what you would like to say to wish Metroid a happy 35th anniversary. All right, well, that's it for this episode 15 of the Shinesparkers podcast. Thank you, Darren, of course, and thank you so much, Sebastian, for being here and telling us about your experience with the Harmony albums. And when, again, can everybody find the album, Harmony of a Hunter Returns? When can they listen to it and where and all that stuff?
Well, it's available August 6th on harmony.shinesparkers.net. And you will love it.
You'll definitely love it, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, make your own album. I'm done. I don't
I'm just imagining Darren going through like YouTube hater comments, just every single one, make your own album.
It's so tempting sometimes, but no, people are entitled to their views.
All right, well, thanks again for listening. We'll see you next mission.
See you next mission.
See you next mission.
This podcast was edited by Darren Kerwin, with music from Maserati. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can find more at shinesparkers.net, along with the latest Metroid news, community features, and exclusive content. Alternatively, you can also find us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next mission.